another episode that we're doing this evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in, whether you're watching this live right now or whether you're going to watch it later on the replay. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to support the channel by watching. It really, truly does mean a lot to me. Yeah, so it's been an interesting week. I hope it's been good for you guys. I hope you've all been well out there. And I am in the process of, as I said a couple of shows back, thinking of ways to improve, not just my channel, but to help other channels. When I got my first big kick in terms of subscribers to this channel, it's when the guitarologist was kind enough to do a... Hey, Ben. Great to see you, sir. When I had the opportunity to get together and do a kind of cross show with him, where, if you guys don't remember, I took some gold coin that I had, that I bought in my travels and was just laying around, but it apparently got some value to it over time. That's just another thing, hold on to everything you can. And I traded that for 4 Celestian greenbacks, which I own, one of which is in my lady. But when we did that, we did a show. He did a show talking about me on his program and vice versa. But of course, Greg, the guitarologist, has a huge, he has a really, really just a big following. And a lot of those came over and started supporting my channel. And it gave me that initial bump that I needed in order to get to this point right now where I can start doing live streams. And of course, getting a little bit of payment. Not a lot, but every little bit helps. So I'd like to do the same thing starting tonight. Every week I'm going to start off by talking about different YouTube channels that I enjoy, and also have been great friends to this, not just necessarily friends to this channel, but friends to this channel also, that I would like you to support the same way that you supported me. If you're subscribed to my channel and you're watching this, I want you to go and check out these other guys. The first one is Noodling Guitars. Noodling Guitars is a great friend of this channel, and his channel is just getting started up. He's got a lot of great videos. Really, Noodling is the guy that you want to go and learn more about pickups and the comparisons that he does. Also, he has a very, very good grasp on technologies in terms of what's being used today and how that works with what used to be. And he's been a great benefit to me when I can't remember something. He's been one of those guys that steps in and really gives me, points me in the right direction when I get lost. And I appreciate it. So Noodling Guitars, that's the name of his channel. Check it out. The next guy is a guy that I've been checking out. He does, his channel is called Black Boy in a Band. Black Boy in a Band. And he's got lots of videos. He has quite a few that he's put up. His subscriber rate is very low, so let's help him out. He is a great source for doing reviews on affordable guitars. Not just the, the Gibsons and Epiphones and Fenders that I do, but he gets into, just Ibanez, a whole lot of different guitars that he reviews. And he's a fantastic guitar player on top of that to boot. So Black Boy in the Band, take the time to check his channel out. The last one for tonight, before we get into the main topic, is a very, very good friend of this channel since the beginning, and that's Peehand Shihtzu. Peehand Shihtzu's channel is really funny sometimes. He puts up a lot of interesting things, and he has one of those kind of minds that I just admire. You know, you can tell this guy's a brilliant guy, and it shows on his channel. He has a song called "On the Bright Side" that he plays a little bit on his channel. That's one of my favorites, actually, just period, from anybody. I really like that playing style. He has a vintage 1955 ES-125. So if you got that, he actually plays that song on. So if you go to his channel and you take a look, give him a thumbs up, give him a subscription, give all these guys your support by subscribing to them. Check out their channels. Once this live stream is done, I'll put links to their channel down in the description. And yeah, let's bring everybody up. Let's give these guys most deserved love that they should be getting, because they all have very unique perspectives of things that you can learn from these guys. So check them out. All right. I want to, how are we doing out there? Hey guys, hi everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I see there's 4 of you this evening. Don't forget to hit those likes, guys. Gotta get those likes, gotta get those likes. Hit that like button. I want to read you something. And it's going to go into what I'm going to talk about tonight. As you know, I've touched upon on this channel before in the past. You know, I don't want this channel to just reflect reviews and, you know, this, that, and the other, in, you know, regards to physical equipment only. I want to talk about practical things that I've learned, some good, some bad, in getting involved in this music business since I was 16 years old, professionally. I was getting paid at the age of 16 to do music. So it's been a long and crazy road. I'd like to share with you my thoughts on some subjects sometimes on these live streams. I can get into it in a little bit more detail, and of course we can have a little bit more back and forth with each other regarding these subjects. The subject tonight is going to be a little bit dark, but at the end of it, I'll tell you one of my touring Japan stories to lighten things up. But it is going to be a little bit of a serious subject. I titled tonight's show, "What's Up With That?" And that's generally a question we ask ourselves when we hear things that really just make you uncomfortable and say, what's up with that? You know, how is this allowed to occur? Is this true? So that's going to be the kind of theme of what we're going to touch on tonight. I'd like to first read you a quote. And tonight's subject is going to be about the non-performance clause that you'll find in your standard music contract when you sign up to a music company or agency or talent agency in some cases. The non-performance clause. So that's going to be our subject tonight. I'd like to read this quote to you. "The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side." And that comes from Hunter Thompson. And that was his pretty accurate take on the music business. Now, this subject of non-performance clause is one that I want to talk about a little bit because it has great bearing in what I've been discussing about the pros and cons of being an independent artist. If, you know, I've been around sign artists. I am currently in a way a sign artist when you think about my deal with my advertising agency in London. I signed to them. Fortunately, I don't have a non-performance clause. I checked in that contract. But when you do sign with a major label, they put something in there called a non-performance clause. Now, essentially, it has this Holy smoke. You went to a serious for a minute. I thought the subject was going to be about the globalists for a second. No, we're not going to talk about the globalists tonight. But this is sinister. This is sinister talk. We're going to get into some things. I've been talking about royalties. And every time I tell a story about this artist that I knew was spending this money in his royalties, and one time I was in the hallway at I believe it was at Motown, their headquarters, and there was these two artists talking to each other. And the guy was like, "Hey man, do you know how much I made?" And the other guy's, "Oh yeah, I made this much." And I was standing there, and even at that time, I was shaking my head, thinking to myself, really, guys, do you really think you made that, or did you get loaned that, and at what rate do you have to pay it, at what cost will you have to pay that back? Even at that time, and having some older guys, say it's better to be the producer than the artist, or to be both. But if you're going to be in that scenario, it's better to be the producer, which is why I strove to become a producer. But really, this subject is about the non-performance clause. Now, the non-performance clause, aka the death clause, has two purposes. First is to secure an insurance policy equivalent to 10 times the estimated value of the artist's earnings from any source of income. Okay, let me read that again. The record company, once you sign this contract, they have a clause in it that allows them to secure an insurance policy equivalent to 10 times the estimated value of the artist's earnings from any source of income. So even if the artist had their own separate thing, that the value of that, a clothing company, a alcohol line or something of that nature, the record label can take an insurance policy, if it's successful, against that its estimated value, and they can reap from that with signing this clause. Now, why is that relevant? Well, I'll give you an example. When Kurt Cobain from Nirvana committed suicide, because we still don't know the details of that. That's why I put the quotes on there, because it's still a little murky. When he died, because he had this clause in his contract, the record company reaped, and by the way, this money goes to the record company. The heirs to the artist, wives, spouse, children, they're not entitled to have any part of this insurance policy. It all goes to the label. In the case of Kurt Cobain, when he passed away, the value of that insurance policy when it was cashed out was in the billions. The billions. $3 to $4 billion. That's how much the record company reaped from the non-performance clause. I bet you they turned out his murder. Well, that's what I'm going to get into. I'm creeping up to that, Ben. I'm creeping up to that. Yeah. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the fact that he was worth more dead than alive at a certain point. He didn't want to perform anymore, strung out on drugs, overdosed a couple of times. They said, this guy, he had one foot in the grave, as we used to say. And when that unfortunate event finally did occur, they reaped a whirlwind of money from that artist. When artists die, like Prince, the owners of the catalog reap a whirlwind of money. In the case of Prince, his catalog went up something in the neighborhood of 3,000%. And again, this is money that the record labels are able to take in. They're able to recoup that money. David Bowie, no exception. We can think of several artists. I'll give you another example, and then we'll go down where the sinister. Let's take a walk down the sinister path. So you have Whitney Houston, and towards the end of her life, because of her drug problems, inhaling and intoxicants, it wrecked her vocal cords. And there were performances that she tried to sing some of her past things, and it was terrible. She had really wrecked her voice, which is a great tragedy in itself because she truly had a beautiful voice. Go on to YouTube, regardless of whether you're into rock music, pop music, or whatever your kind of music, you can appreciate true art. And listen to her singing, I believe in Miracles, from the live performance she did in the movie The Preacher's Bride, or The Preacher's Wife. I'm sorry, Preacher's Wife. And listen to her sing. That's her singing live. And it's just chilling. But she ruined her voice. And she began hanging out with questionable people. And she ended up, as you know, dead, drowned in a bathtub. Although her mother made it quite clear that she would never take a bath in a hotel bathtub because she thought they were dirty and disgusting. And that sounds diva-ish and quite correct. So how she drowned in a bathtub, with this much water in it is, is something up there. So she passes away, and the next in kin for her, in line for her to inherit, was her daughter, Bobby, that she had with the singer Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown ends up dead in a bathtub, drowned, like her mother. So the insurance policies, the royalties, and all those things were recruited back to the record labels. We're talking about billions of dollars, we're talking about 9, 10, we're getting up there into the triple, double digits of billions that were recouped by the record company upon the death of Miss Houston and her daughter under mysterious circumstances. So I guess the point of this tale, and where I'm getting to, is that you got to look at that non-performance clause and ask yourself, what's up with that? As the title of this particular show is, what's up with that? And what value do you achieve from having success? And, being famous has certain things that come with it and certain things that get taken away. And there are plenty of famous people out there who don't have a dime to their name. I'm not even going to get into that. Again, I touched upon that before. So you sign up, and then there's artists who want to put out music that their label says we're not going to put it out unless you do X, Y, and Z. And yet there are artists who say, fine, I'm going to walk, and yet they find that they can't. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm going to throw it out there for you guys to think about, to ponder upon when I talk about this subject is, what is the true value or worth of having a record contract? If at the end of success, being at the top, Prince said, I've been to the top, there's nothing there. He ended up strangely dead. George Michael died on Christmas Day. Didn't he have a famous song called Last Christmas? Anyway, I digress with that train of thought. But my point is, that's not even to get into the de-elevator of Let's Go Crazy and how he was dead in an elevator. But anyway, my point is that if you reach a certain amount of success, are you able really to be free of that contract? Because every record that comes out, you take a bigger loan, they offer you more money, and there's obviously a price. that they have baked in. They know, well, if this guy is turning over this much and we offer him this much, there's no way that you can say no. And then of course contracts regarding fulfillments of paying, royalties. That may put you on perpetual tour for the rest of your life. So you ask yourself, well, why is a guy like Paul McCartney still performing at a certain age? So I'm just saying that, or some of these other rock bands, and and these are guys that are supposed millionaires. Why do they keep doing it? So yeah, it's a sinister part of the music industry that you guys should be aware of if you weren't. Like I said, tonight's subject is a little dark because I don't want to just talk about amps and pedals and gear and this, that, or the other. I actually do want to talk about some things of substance. I'm kidding. Those things are a substance too. But for the young out there who aspire to get into a record contract, it's better to have the knowledge and to be aware of these things. I don't know if you can circumvent something like that if you get offered a major label contract. I really don't know if you can get that clause taken out. I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think that's baked into the cake. And, of course, this also plays into, you're saying, well, Mike, why would, what kind of people would off their artists, if that's what you're hinting at? Which, in some cases, I'm suggesting that there have been cases where artists were offed. And it gets into where is the money coming from, really? Who's involved in the music business? Is there a certain level of shady characters, as Thompson there was alluding to, and that little eloquent line about the music business? Are these the shady characters, the pimps? So yeah, that gets into that, and so just something to think about, guys. I throw that out there as a serious because I wanted to bring it up. A serious subject, a dark subject, but one that we can continue to discuss down in the comment section. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And seriously though, to me, that's just not something that I really. You're setting yourself up, because if you are successful, you're basically putting yourself in a position with people who aren't, the salt of the earth, who may decide that you're worth more dead than you are alive, and you've signed a contract. You signed a deal that says that puts your life on the line, brings a new meaning to sign myself over to the who. So something to think about. On a lighter note, two things that I want to talk about tonight. So let's lighten it up. So let's move away from that subject. On a lighter note tonight, I this week was watching on YouTube Black Sabbath live in Paris, 1970, August of 1970. And, I was really amazed by the tone of Tony Iommi's, he plays an SG, and I believe he was running through not a Vox stack, although it looked like Marshalls. I'm not sure. If anybody out there knows for sure, you can chime in. But just the tone that he was getting out of that guitar, it was really showing the versatility of the SG guitar. A lot of people kind of dog on SGs, and they say, well, that's not really something that has the Les Paul tone. But let's remember this was the guitar that replaced the Les Paul. This was the new design that Les Paul hated so much, he said, take my name off that crap. But I encourage you guys to go onto YouTube and watch that and listen to that tone. And I never was a big fan of Ozzy's voice, to be frank with you. Of course, I like Crazy Train. I like the stuff that he did with Randy Rhoads later on. I dig, the Blizzard of Oz. I dig those albums. I grew up listening. Those albums came out at the time that I was 13, 14, 15 years old. So and I listened to them. My good friend Drake Gooseby was instrumental in introducing me to a lot of different kinds of music that I didn't hear, and so, but I never was a big fan of his voice. I found it kind of monotone, a lot of energy, but just monotone. But boy, back in 1970, Ozzy, he could blow, and with different. It was almost as if he was acting because he would take on different characters. For the song Black Sabbath, where he was really getting into that monotone voice, he sounded awesome. And just a tight band. I remember reading a story with those gigs at that time that they were playing that they would play 4 or 5 sets a day or something like that, an evening in those clubs. And they would literally go back, fall asleep on the couch. The manager would come in and say, 5 minutes, boys. They would hop up, do whatever they had to do to get it together and hit the stage, give 100%, then go off stage and lay down again. So just and that was at the height of that. That was the period that he was talking about. So just to see the energy, it was something too. So that was something I watched this week that I enjoyed very much. So yeah, for you classic rock aficionados out there, check it out on YouTube. Black Sabbath, Live in Paris, August 1970 is the title of it. Just awesome, awesome, awesome sounding tone. And again, like I said, that SG tone that he was, it was the Les Paul tone. It was just an SG. And no pedals, plugged, directly into the amps. And just a fantastic tone, getting back to how you just don't need, pedals aren't going to make or break you. The tone is, again, in your pickups, and then you follow that chain down to your amp, the speaker that you're using, and the configuration of the amp. The tubing, whether it's EL84s or whatever, really doesn't matter. And pedals are just, sugar on it, and sometimes the cake is sweet enough. You don't need that. And in his case, just a beautiful tone. So check that out. Where are we at? 27 minutes. 2 people watching. I thank you guys so much for hanging in there. I want to tell you guys a story. I was talking about such a dark subject. On my notes here, I said, well, tell a bright story. So I thought that I would also tonight talk about one of my on the road stories. I think the last time, your thoughts on the dog ear P90s? Yeah, Ben. The P90s, I got a chance at TC Gaki in Tokyo when I was there. They had a 56 Les Paul Standard with P90s in it. So I got a chance to actually play the original set of, that everything else is derivative of P90s, and tried my best to, I was just hitting chords, just trying to remember what that sound, that tone is. Of course, amps change and everything, but just to get a grasp for what that tone was. And it has, they clean up really nice, but when you start to dig into them and drive them, put a little gain on them, they have a raspiness to them that's different from a set of vintage humbuckers, which I also I'm thankful to have had these experiences with Wayne's late 59, early 60 Les Paul Standard. And comparing those those 56 P90s with that 5960 humbuckers, the humbuckers, when you threw the gain up on them, that they had that famous mid-ranginess to them, that woodiness to them, the mid-ranginess, the woodiness, and the overtones, those secondary tones that you get with those. That you really only get with really high. The only other pair of humbuckers that I heard that had those truly had those overtones were Wiz PAFs, and those things are $500-600 a pair, even more than that. But the Wiz had those that when I played that, I was like, oh, okay, these are truly close to a pair of humbuckers. But the P90s, they have that mid hump. They've got not a rat. They've got yeah, got a Joyo British sound. Yeah, yeah. That thing is actually not bad. Actually, I have a vintage. I have a vintage tube in that. But I digress. A 60 or yeah, early 60s GE tube in there that I replaced the Chinese tube with. The P90s have a raspiness to them. They got that mid to it, but they have a raspiness to them, and they don't have those overtones that the humbuckers have. But it is a fantastic tone clean. They clean up better than I think than humbuckers do, so that's the advantage. And it's just a different sound. But as I was saying with that Tony Iommi video with Black Sabbath live in 1970, I heard a little of that P90 raspiness in those humbuckers that he. I don't know what year his guitar was. I'm going to assume that it was, you know, a maybe 65 or 66. Couldn't have been that old. Well, you know, to him it was brand new. It was basically at that 1970 that make it a brand new SG practically within the last 5 years. But it had a raspiness like P90s to it. I like P90s. As I've told you, I've recorded with them. Last week's song, the song Belly Dancer, all the guitars that I recorded on the left channel, those are P90s. That's from a Les Paul Classic, a 2021 Les Paul Classic, 2020. So I like the P90 sound. I have a P90 guitar, and there's a single P90 guitar in there. And when I want to just get that growly, you know, tone, I'll just sit there and play that. So that's P90s. But getting back to my humorous story, if you guys would allow me to go back in time to Japan in 2012, 2011, 2012. And I had just released my first solo album as this one I'm working on right now is my fifth. So my first album, The Sower, and I was going on mini tours, medium venue tours with it, and I was putting my band together. Now my band consisted of all Japanese musicians. The drummer and the bass player had played together in quite a few bands. Hideo and Taru, those two guys, they had played together in bands for quite a while. So I like that, because when you got a drummer and a bass player that work together, they know each other, and it'll lock. It'll lock. And to me, you know, if you're going to start putting a band together, you know, you better make sure your rhythm section is tight. The guitar player, Keigo, is an artist in his own right. He was a graduate from Juilliard, had his own band, has his own record out, and he was kind enough to come and be a guitarist for the shows I did in Tokyo. And that left me playing guitar and keyboards, playing piano. Oh, and a keyboard player. I hired an additional keyboard player. I can't think of his name. Didn't really take to him too well. Can't think of him. I fired him actually not too long after that. And the third person, or the last person that I needed, was a percussionist, because on that album I used a lot of percussion. So I hired this guy that was recommended to me by the keyboard player. Yet another reason why I fired this guy. He recommended to me a guy that he knew that wanted to get into playing live music. Um, Japanese guy. He had he had a room full of percussion. When I went over to his house, his apartment, I said to myself, "Well, this guy certainly has the tools to do it." So I said, "I'll take him seriously," because he had quite a array of percussion instruments. Impressive, actually. Couldn't play him for shit. I mean, I went over and I said, okay, on the song "The Sower," this is the kunga part, so this is how it goes. All right, or I played it and I played the tracks, and so I had to work with him on that to the point where I said, well, at least he can keep time, and it fills in a sonic hole, so I'll just let him ride. So he made it to the rehearsal stage, and as I told you before, at these venues, you get no percentage of the front door. I mean, of the bar. You just only get the front door, which means if you bring in 200 people, then you get, I believe, 50%. I'm sorry, 50% of the front door. So, and no money from the bar. So usually it worked out that most of the money that I made from the front door is what I used to pay the band off that night. And it was pretty immediately finished to get the set, or what is actually two sets. Manager comes over, he gives an envelope, I go back, pay everybody, and they go home. And I give them all an even split. Now, in this case, I had a drummer, a bass player, a keyboard player, a guitarist, and a percussionist, and my good friend doing background vocals, and Maurice doing background. He was a professional dancer. He actually danced for a Japanese group called Smap Smap on TV for years in Japan. I had Maurice on stage, and Maurice is a is a big brother. I mean, the older he's gotten, he and I are the same age, and we go way back to the '90s. He and I met him back in the early '90s, and when the '95, '96, not too long after I was there, he was there dancing for Smap Smap. But big guy, I had him on stage dancing and doing, and he loved it. He said, "Hey man, I really want to go on stage with you." I said, "Hey, come on and do it." Glad I had him that day. Now, the take at the door, I split evenly. If it's 4 musicians, 4 ways, 5 musicians, 5 ways. And on that particular night, I think it worked out to about 40 yonsen yen, which is about $40. Not even that these days with the exchange, but let's just say $40 per person. That paid for the rehearsal, was no pay, but I bought lunch. So when we had the rehearsal before that, I bought lunch, and during the breaks, I bought everybody their drink, coffee, whatever. So that's how I took care of that end of it. But for the actual gigs themselves, they would get about 40, $50. And that's just the way it worked out. It wasn't big money, guys. But these guys loved to play. I think they liked the idea of playing my record, learning it. Actually, Hideo played drums on a few of the tracks on the album. And so there was that. Keigo played on some of the tracks as well. So it was something that they enjoyed doing. And for them, $50 for a night, that was a good night for them. I mean, that's just how it was. I would make my money from CD sales. I showed you guys one of my CDs I would sell. And that's how I made it. And I was making, I was charging sen yen per CD, and it just really depended upon that night how much I would get. I too wasn't making a great deal of money from that exchange. Some nights better than others, but mostly none. But we all knew that. When I was working as a professional musician, it was a different story because I was drawing a monthly salary as well as tips. When you're playing live and working the club circuit with your own band, it's a different story. And if you guys out there, it's no different than the States. I'm sure I'm not telling you any different than if you played in Nashville. I'm sure there's plenty of bands playing in Nashville tonight or today. That it's going to, even today in 2022, it's going to be the same $50 split to everybody at the door. And if they're lucky, but that maybe that'll cover gas money and a burger. But that's the way it is. And the percussionist guy, who also I didn't mention was kind of a jack dude as well. He wasn't very tall, but for a Japanese guy, he was pretty built. I was of the opinion that he might have been a little steroided up. And he showed up to the live show drunk. Drunk. So I wasn't very, as a band leader, I wasn't very happy about that. But I said to myself, you know, if he can play somewhat, you know, at least he's a body up on stage and he's somebody interesting, because he wore a feather boa. He had little butterfly glasses on. He looked stage, he looked interesting. So I said, okay, there's that. So, and he's up there just playing God knows what. As a matter of fact, my good friend Mina, who has a big band and who I invited to that first show that he played at, his last show, first and last show, she says, I love the band, love the music, fire the percussionist. So that's exactly how that went. But afterwards, we're backstage and I'm divvying up the money. I'm like, oh, okay, guys, here's all your money. And he comes up to me drunk, still drinking, fucked up the show. You know, I'm sorry for my language, guys, but that's just how I really, I'll tell you, I don't very rarely cuss, but that's how I'll tell you how it is. And and demanded more money from me. He was like, you know, hey man, I went to a rehearsal and this is all, and I played up there and this is all the money I get. And he's drunk. And I knew he was drunk. He was getting all close on me. Now, I had two choices at that situation: diffuse it, or pop him in the mouth. No need to apologize. Thanks, Ben. I don't like cursing. I'm not a big cursor, but this story, just this guy, you know. And I said to him, I said, you know what, man? You know, we were actually I was at my CD booth and I'm trying to sell CDs while he's up on me like this. And I got people standing here. I'm like, you know what, man? Let me take care of this right here. I'll come backstage and we'll talk about it. So he was back there with some girl that he bought with him. And I brought Maurice with me. I said, Maurice, I didn't even tell Maurice when it was up. I said, Maurice, we need to go back here and handle something. And Maurice, being, you know, I knew that he, you know, that we were communicating on an LA level, because he's from LA too. We understood each other. So I go backstage and I got Maurice behind me now. Okay? So you got me and Maurice, and I'm standing there and I didn't say anything. I didn't say, you know, what was up with that? I didn't say, what's your problem? I didn't say a word. I just stood there looking at him. And he says to me, oh, Mike, how you doing? You okay? How you doing? Completely 180. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, So I learned two things that night. I learned that an unprofessional musician will screw up your band. Don't sacrifice. If a guy can't play, if you're thinking, okay, I can work with this person, I can try to bring him up, I can try to make this work, don't waste your time, don't do it. You find somebody else or do it, or, you know, as I often do, that's one of the reasons why I learned how to play all the instruments myself, so that I, you know, ultimately only had to answer to myself. And I don't drink, by the way. You'll never see Mike McWilliams drunk on anything, because I don't drink. Not for religious reasons. I'm actually allergic to alcohol. It's the Native American blood in me from my grandfather. I can't drink it. It just might throat swells up and it's just painful and it's just a pain in the butt. So I don't drink. But yeah, don't hire somebody who can't make the cut. And also, having a big guy is a great thing to have. I never appreciated having muscle. I mean, there have been times when I wish Maurice was there, especially in some of those situations in Nagoya, some of which I've told you and some of which I haven't. But that was one situation where I was glad that, and I said, hey man, you know, so he packed his stuff, and that was the last time I saw from him. I heard from him, saw from him, and we continued without him. We didn't really need him, as it turns out, and he was screwing up the rhythm anyway. So yeah, that really happened. That was a funny situation. But it just goes to show you that, you know, it's as a band leader, you know, you got to keep a cool head. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that was my fault. So when he was up on me like this, and I'm trying to get my money and trying to you know, get myself taken care of at least the best that I could, I brought that on myself because I made the mistake of thinking that I could take him and to turn him into something he wasn't. He wasn't really a stage performer. He really wasn't a percussionist. He was a pretend percussionist. And there was a lot of cats. Kago and he would take me around the clubs and show me bands. And one night we went to a club and these guys were just playing the most god-awful, I don't know what that was they were playing. But he said, look at their instruments. And they were all brand new Gibsons and Fenders. All their amps were new, everything. He said, all those guys, those are rich guys. He says, those are Tokyo University guys. They got money. He says, they got all that money for all those, you know, expensive, fancy instruments, but they can't play. You know, they can't play them. And there was a lot of guys like that, the pretend musicians. So you got to be careful. I'm sure if that was happening in Tokyo, that was happening in your neck of the woods as well. So just be aware of that. Don't waste your time on musicians who don't make the cut. You know, I got cut many a time. There was one time when my friend John invited me to come and play with a band, and I got one rehearsal and they wanted me to play this line, and for some reason the band leader was like, I don't like the way this guy's playing. And when I got up on stage, they had turned my amp upside down and unplugged it. Did I freak out? Did I get pissed off and storm off the stage? No, I didn't. You know what I did? I pretended like I was playing that part, and I hopped up in stage and I got the crowd going more than the lead singer, the guy who turned. And later on, he told John, bring that guy back. He's really good for the energy for the crowd. And I said, F you, dude. No, nah, you know, and so but you get cut. You know, that's just one situation. There's been, you know, a handful of situations where people just, you know, and you learn from that. It makes you practice harder. It makes you rehearse more and be ready. And it also cuts out the riffraff. You recognize the guys who don't make the cut immediately because it just is obvious. And you do not try to work with those guys because you will be wasting your time. All right, guys, that is it for, thank you, Ben. That is the end of tonight's story and presentation. Again, with Black Boy in the Band, Noodling Guitars, and Peehand Shihtzu's channels. Guys, I'm going to put their links down in the description here as soon as this live is done. If you're subscribed to this channel, I want you to go to their channels and check those channels out, subscribe to them. Let's bring them up so they can get to 1,000 subscribers. So that they can start doing live streams, and maybe we can all start doing live streams together. Who knows? But they can't do it without your help. You help me so much. These are guys that I think are worthy, certainly, of your help as well to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So don't forget to check that out. Ben and everybody else out there in the live stream, I thank you so much for taking the time. I know your time is precious. Taking the last 40 minutes or so to listen in. And you guys have a good week. Keep yourself safe. and safe. And until the next one, you guys take care. Bye-bye.